In fact, I loved this show so much that it inspired me to bring on a new character to my video reviews. Everyone, say hi to Sparkles. Say hi, Sparkles. Hello. Yes, after a portal that mysteriously opened in my hometown, Sparkles showed up and, well, I invited him on the show.
That's not true. You were supposed to use me in a review for Fairy Gone.
We don't talk about Fairy Gone, Sparkles.
We don't talk about Fairy Gone?
We don't.
Okay.
Good, Sparkles. Anyways, I think that this has gone on long enough, and I really am excited about today's show because, like I said, I really did enjoy this. But anyways, well, but that reminds me. Sparkles, do you have anything to comment? Ah, well, okay. Just say something whenever you want. But anyways, let's get started with today's review on Copcraft. After a mysterious portal opens in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, a world of fairies, elves, and other creatures entered our world. Now humans and these creatures called Samanians live together in the city of Santa Teresa in harmony. Supposedly. After losing his partner in a drug bust gone wrong, Detective K.E. Mataba is partnered with a Samanian warrior princess named Tilarna Excadelia to track down the one responsible for selling the drugs and for possibly doing much worse. This is not the show's running plot and is rather one long story arc, but much of these cases K.E. and Tilarna work on throughout the series follow them as they solve cases involving humans and Samanians alike. And by the way, if this plot sounds familiar at all, you might be thinking of the Netflix film Bright, as it had a very similar, if not exact, premise. But compared to today's show, well, that was a rushed ghetto F-bomb-laced mess! Having watched the film recently, when the credits rolled, I remember saying that I would have liked Bright better had I not seen this show before. Granted, there were things wrong with Bright that Copcraft did a whole lot better, but we'll get to those in due time. But getting back on track here, what was it about this show that made me fall in absolute love with it? Well, stick around and find out. If my excitement up to this point is of any indication of anything, I really did enjoy this show. In fact, I think I've already made that clear that I really liked this show. And yeah, for a lot of really good reasons. In fact, I would go as far to say that this was probably one of the most underrated shows of 2019. Overall, I give Copcraft an 80. In starting things off, I think the world building was one of its best elements. I'll admit, I'm not big on fantasy. I enjoy the genre, but I don't actively pursue any show or movie in that genre. But I do feel like Copcraft gets everything about the genre right. In particular, where the show truly excels is it sets its world up very well. In a brief prologue that usually plays before the title sequence to the show, a narrator clearly explains and shows the audience this world that the show is set in. A portal opened up about 15 years ago before the show's events in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. On the other side of said portal was a world of fairies and elves and other mystical beings. And from there, you can listen to the synopsis again to find out what happens after that. I mean, it's got to do with Santa Teresa and stuff like that. As someone who likes to know exactly what's going on, this gives audiences a clear idea about the world Copcraft takes place in, and it gives audiences an idea of what is happening in this world and what they can come to expect when watching the show without getting too technical with terminology or anything like that. Going back to my earlier thoughts on Bright, had that movie taken the time to actually explain the world it's set in, rather than just throw its audience into it, it would have been a lot better. And speaking of, I liked the buddy cop element to the show as well.
I've mentioned before on my blog that two of my favorite non-anime TV shows were Law & Order SVU and Forensic Files. By the way, who's ready for Forensic Files 2? If that's any indication, I love mystery shows and cop dramas. And much like the show's fantasy elements, I think it gets the mystery and cop drama element down too. Kei and Tilarna have great chemistry as cops, even if things between them are rocky at first. Over time, they do come to appreciate each other as work partners and gain an understanding of each other and where they come from. Not to mention, they're also pretty darn good at solving mysteries. At times, though, a lot of it is focused on Tilarna and how she deals with the world around her. But there are some times we do delve into Kei and his character. But regardless of who we're focused on, they're great characters involved in some pretty interesting mysteries that you just love to watch. Whether they're arguing about legal procedures on the job or chasing down bad guys.
Besides the great way the show combined the fantasy and cop drama elements as well as give us great characters, the stories themselves were also written particularly well. And yes, that's plural.
The show is episodic, or if nothing else, has a story arc that runs about 2 or 3 episodes. Given that the show is meant to be a mystery cop show, it's appropriate. Even so, these story arcs have some great stories that can be applied to our world today. One of which plays out very similarly to a Law & Order SVU episode, in that it involves a corrupt politician caught up in an escort scandal. But by far the best arc comes at the end of the series. Here, Santa Teresa's upcoming mayoral election gets thrown into chaos when 2 of the candidates, one of them involved in the SVU-esque episode, are assassinated. This arc felt like it was very much inspired by the 2016 presidential election, and in many ways it played out very similarly, except in the realm of copcraft, Hillary Clinton gets arrested for assassinating Bill. Sorry, that's a bit of a spoiler. I love it when a show can cleverly incorporate real-world events into its narrative as a means for discussion or as a means to relate to an audience that isn't all that in touch with the news.
I try not to, but, being an adult and all.
If you remember my reviews on Attack on Titan Season 3, Attack on Titan did this very well as it touched on issues of political corruption, oppression and racism, and journalism. Copcraft isn't as thought-provoking or deep as Attack on Titan, but it does touch on some major issues. As I said before, it gets political as the final story arc is a mayoral election that eerily parallels the 2016 election, but it does also tackle political corruption.
It also discusses one theme that, in all honesty, was the best discussed theme out of the entire show: racism.
Though Copcraft takes some liberties with its idea of race relations, I think it does very well at addressing the issue. Many of the fantastic creatures, or Samanians, are persecuted and discriminated quite often by not being human, and it is often a source of tension in Santa Teresa. This becomes especially apparent in the last few episodes with the mayoral election arc. But throughout the series, there are several cases where many of the Santa Teresa police officers clash with Tilarna, including Kei himself. But despite what prejudices he has, he does come around. And this was no more apparent than in one scene when Tilarna is called a racial slur by 2 fellow police officers and Kei calls them out on their actions. As blunt as the show may be on the issue, it's wonderful to see the show handle it so well. Again, going back to Bright. While that tried to tackle the same subject, it didn't handle it very well. It had the right idea, but yeah, Copcraft did it better.
And finally, though this isn't necessarily a deal breaker here, it was just something from the show that I liked, but I enjoyed the English dub. For one reason.
I watched the English dub of Copcraft completely by accident. What kept me on it for the rest of the series, though, was one particular performance. And that was David Matranga as K.E. Mataba. Why? Because based on all the videos I've seen of him at Q&As, he looks like the sweetest person in the world. Not to mention he is kind of cute. That's not meant to go anywhere. Cut that out. But he plays the bad cop role so well in this show. Though if you look at Matranga's bibliography, he often plays cool anti-hero characters. In particular, he's known for playing Todoroki in My Hero Academia and the Wolfman in Wolf Children, the latter of which he won an acting award for. So it really shouldn't be that big of a surprise. But that didn't stop me from being pleasantly surprised at how kick-butt and entertaining his performance was.
In fact, it's thanks to this dub that Matranga drops one of the best lines out of the entire series, bar none. And yes, I have to show a clip of this because I can't do it justice by saying it. Watch this.
Someday Satan's gonna get his claws in you and you will be sorry.
Satan can suck my dick. Satan can suck my dick.
Satan can suck my dick. I have no words for... Well, okay, I do, but what do you say to that? Seriously, like, that is one of the most epic yet hilarious lines I've ever heard. You know what? And now that I think about it too, you know those t-shirts that say "Not Today Satan" on them? I want to see somebody take that but put "Satan can suck my dick" on them. I will buy and wear that t-shirt every day until it falls off my body.
Anyways, the dub itself isn't something that would completely sway an audience to watch it. You could watch the original Japanese dub just fine and enjoy it. But I did want to acknowledge one heck of a performance that I think is very much worth a Funimation Now subscription. Despite what flack they're getting right now.
So yeah, at this point I've spent several minutes going on and on about how great this show is and all the great stuff in it and blah 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 blah. But even I will admit, it's not perfect.
Even though the world building is done very well in this show, I feel like it's not 100% clear on some of the terms. Occasionally, the Samanians are called aliens. Well, are they? I mean, yeah, they're from a completely different world, but does that really make them aliens? And, well, at the time it seemed confusing, but looking back on it now, the word was more than likely used as a slur as opposed to what they actually are. I guess I would have liked to have seen some clarity on that, but then again, this show is not a high fantasy where it's completely immersed in another world, so there wouldn't be a big need to explain that, and again, it's more likely this is a racial slur to describe the Samanians, which ties back to the show's discussion on racial tension. I also felt like, too, the quality of the animation dipped a little by the end of the series. Sometimes the action scenes were just still images of people fighting each other, and there were even some details that seemed kinda lax. Yeah, it sounds weird, but yeah, it was an issue. There might have been a financial reason behind that, but that doesn't explain in another scene. You get this weird bit of animation where Tilarna, as a cat, if you're watching this and don't know what the heck is going on, randomly flops around. Ugh, it's so weird and confusing. It just doesn't seem to fit the show at all. I'm not sure whose ideas these were, but This is kind of lousy when details like that are noticeable. Still, these are just small problems, and compared to what I've said about the show so far, there is far more good things to it.
At the end of the day, this was a great show with great writing, great themes, and great characters. And even though it wasn't perfect, there are in fact problems with it. If nothing else, I do feel like the show combines the fantasy and cop drama elements incredibly well. Unlike Bright, which, how did I put it earlier in the synopsis? That was a rushed ghetto F-bomb laced. You get the point. Definitely recommend this show. Go watch it if you ever get a chance. And if nothing else, I mean...
Satan can suck my dick?
I was gonna play the clip again, Sparkles. Ah, who am I kidding? It doesn't matter. That's still such a funny line. Yeah, let's end this review on that, why don't we? Yeah. And so that wraps up today's review. As always, thank you so much for watching, and due to some upcoming traveling that I'll be doing, this will be the last video review for February. But fear not, because for my next video review in March, I will be doing something very interesting that I usually do on my blog. So this next video will be interesting and will probably have no repercussions whatsoever. None. None whatsoever. Nope. None at all. Till next time, bye.
Satan can suck my dick.